2020 at 6 o'clock. I'll start with roll call. Ms. Lancaster? Not present, okay. Ms. Fish?
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Okay. Mr. Woodard?
Present.
Mr. Bennett?
Here.
Okay, thank you. That we have a quorum. And before we go to public comment, Nora has some words here for us.
Good evening. I just wanted to give some instruction for the Q&A period of this meeting, which is item 6 on the agenda. If you are here electronically for the Q&A period, you will need to join via Zoom to be able to participate in that Q&A period. You can do that by going to our website, finding this meeting on our events calendar, and then you will find the how to join Zoom information there. So if you are here for Q&A, which doesn't look like we have too many attendees right now, but if you are, that's how you would participate.
Thank you, Nora. We'll now open the floor up for public comment.
I believe that we have one public commenter present.
Okay, that public comment will have 3 minutes.
You are now unmuted.
Thank you. Who did receive a response that he was in the lineup.
He was accepted for public comment, but is not called in to make comment.
Oh, he's actually here with me. We're on one computer. I'm sorry for that confusion, but we're sharing a computer here.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and make my public comment, and then I'll pass this on to Gare. My name is Karen Schmidt, and I live at 409 East Grove Street, and I want to thank public safety. I work with a variety of youth through organizations such as the West Bloomington Revitalization Project, the Boys and Girls Club, etc. And as we are currently navigating as a community through the serious challenges we're facing through systemic racism and political divisiveness, I've been involved in some recent discussion about developing opportunities for our youth to engage with all of our community and to share ideas and their vision about how Bloomington should and could work together in the city that they live in, and which I hope that they will choose to stay in. I have personally observed the mature and intentional ways that the younger generation of Bloomington Normal are addressing these challenges. Their rallies, marches, and statements of goals and values are respectful, and they give me great hope for our future. So I wonder, how do we nurture this and connect them to the work that this community needs to do to continue to grow in healthy ways and to become welcoming and compassionate? And I would like to recommend that we consider adding 2 youth members to the Public Safety and Community Relations Board. My recommendation would be that these be 2 new seats on the board. And not filling the one that I know is vacant right now. The youth could be recommended and vetted, much as current members are recommended and vetted, and still provide valuable service and sharing ideas back on community policing issues. 2 other ideas outside the purview of this board, still connected to community and police relationships. I would like to suggest that the city consider a partnership group that worked much like MAP, the Minority and Police Partnership, that was formed in the past and which was so successful. And I do think that this could become an opportunity and the Bloomington Police Department and other police agencies are doing to develop new outside the scope of your work. But I want to thank you for our community. I deeply respect Bloomington is a great place to live, and I'll be staying through the meeting and would be happy to engage with any questions that you might have. Thank you so much. And I'm going to turn this over, if this is okay, to Gary Moore.
Hello, my name is Gary Moore, and I'm a member of the Non-North School Steering Committee. I'd like to make comment on one, the adding of youth representation and membership on the PSCRB, and two, the creation of youth and police partnership program, such as the minority and police partnership program. Reasons why the youth membership needs to be added to the board goes as follows. Number one, the board contains members who are aging from late 30s to late 60s, meaning the board lacks and is missing an entire segment of the population. That segment being the late teens to late 20s age range. Number two, the youth today are brilliant, have taken steps to not only better the community we will inherit, but also better the environment we are living in. There are youth, such as myself, who stand up and strive for activism and change we want to see in the community by voicing our concerns and letting our voices be known. Adding youth membership to the board will be a surefire way of that always being in consideration, giving new perspectives that will be present at every meeting and decision made. Three, the youth have always been significantly impacted by the interaction of law enforcement in the community they live in, often not even aware of what sources where they can address concerns. Four, the youth who are added can either be ex officio members who shine insight on topics but do not vote when it comes to actual meetings, yet always attends, or the youth can be added, can be an actual member filling in the vacancy the board currently has. That can be decided and given to the board to work on. Now speak on the creation of the Youth and Police Partnership Program. This will be an amazing idea due to the current climate in our country in today's age. Such as the Minority and Police Partnership Program, this youth partnership program can be used to, one, build a relationship before a problem arises between the two groups. Two, to make an even more direct place for issues and questions the youth recognize with the police to be voiced without knowing or guessing who to go to or who to call. The board was started to build bridges between the public and police. This will build bridges between the police and the youth. Three, not only will this shorten the divide between the two groups, it will strengthen the community as a whole. Thank you for allowing me to voice my concern and comments.
Thank you. As a reminder, the board does not respond to public comment, but thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We will now move on to number 4 on the agenda, which is discussions of complaints received. And we'll have Assistant Chief Wamsley speak on that, please.
Okay. As I said last meeting, to date of 2020, January 1st till today's date, we've received 8 sworn citizen complaints. Of the 8 complaints that we've received, 4 of them are still pending. I'll kind of do a little breakdown of what the complaints consist of. One thing I will remind everybody is multiple allegations can be in one complaint. So that's why the number of allegations I'm going to read off does not match the 8. There'll actually be a few more. So to date, we've received 3 complaints of excessive force. We received 1 complaint of dissatisfied with service, 1 complaint of unlawful search and seizure, 2 complaints of courtesy to public, 1 complaint of theft, 1 complaint of violation of rules and regulations, 2 complaints of harassment, and 1 complaint of unlawful arrest. Of all the complaints, the 4 that, when I say closed, I've sent closure letters to them. We've received none of them to come to the PSCRB for review.
Thank you, Chief Wamsley. Is there any questions or comments from the board? All right. Hearing none, we will move on to number 5 on the agenda. Moving right along. Again, if I'm going too fast, please, if you guys have any questions, something, just raise your hand and feel free. Let's report on recruiting hiring and the wellness program. And again, I will hand it over to Assistant Chief Walmsley to take over.
Okay, well, I'm going to apologize now. I'm going to be a little long-winded here. I got quite a few different things to kind of go over first off. Just a quick update on the hiring. Right now, we have one person in the academy who will graduate on Friday, tomorrow. I have 4 applicants who we hired back on May 4th who've been in-house doing some in-house training. They will go to the academy on Sunday, July 12th. I also have 2 lateral hire officers who are going through the process right now. They've just completed their polygraph, so we'll be moving them on towards psychological testing, medical testing to try and get them fully hired, hopefully sometime maybe middle August, end of August. On top of that, we have just closed our new hiring application process as of July 1st. I will start PT test with all of these applicants next Tuesday. Just want to give you a little breakdown on what we received in regards to application testing and all that jazz. We received 298 applications. Of the 298 applications, 149 of them people actually took the written test. Of the 149, 89 passed with an 86% or higher, which is what we have as our cutoff to be invited to the PT test. Of that 89, I've got 15 minorities, 10 females, 21 veterans. I had 27 people that took the test and failed with the National Testing Network. Their testing failure rate is 70% or below. And I also had 10 that did not turn in an application after they took the test. And this was after multiple reminders to them that they needed to do this application. So we had reached out to them several times. Going along with that, I do want to say that we have been hiring a lot of very good officers. I would like to go through just a couple of the accolades that some of these officers that we've had. I talked about before in regards to awards. The first one is a life-saving award where Officer Flarsky and Officer Stacy have received the life-saving award for using Narcan on a subject and bringing them back to life. And I'm going to try and summarize these as much as I possibly can for you guys. We have another life-saving award that was awarded to Officer Rube and Officer Widmer. They had been dispatched to a possible overdose. They also used Narcan, 2 doses of Narcan to revive a subject. We have an exemplary performance citation that was awarded to Officers Freeman, Gallion, Hayworth, Hurt, Parsley, Vasquez, and Officer Zemer. This had to deal with a subject who was called in and said that he was armed and had just committed a armed robbery. Officers located him at a residence with the loaded gun. They were able to talk with him for an extended period of time until the opportunity presented itself to where they were able to go in, secure the gun, and secure the person with nobody being injured. I have another life-saving award that was awarded to Officer Russell. I'm sorry. It was awarded to Officer Parsley and Officer Pippins. And this is a very unique one, is our officers had stopped a vehicle, and as they were searching the vehicle, one of our sergeants came in contact with what we believe was some type of narcotic. Ultimately, she fell down completely going out of it. They had to use 2 doses of Narcan on her to revive her. So luckily our officers were on scene to be able to take care of our own person even. I have the last one, which is a Distinguished Achievement Award, which was awarded to Officer Jones in regards to a stabbing that had occurred. He was a first responder on scene before the medics even arrived. He was down there packing the wound. It was a chest wound. He was down there packing the wound. The paramedics were amazed that he was able to get that wound pretty much to stop bleeding before they ever arrived. He had a great rapport with the subject, went to the hospital, was able to talk with the hospital to where we were able to get the suspects who were involved. That being said, like I said, we've got a lot of good awards that have been coming. These are just some of the big ones. We've had many attaboys, many letters of commendation. And like I said, I'd like to do that every quarter for you guys. I know our last quarterly meeting wasn't around, so I want to make sure I got that info out to you. Last thing on here that I have is in regards to our wellness class. We finally were able to hold our first wellness class that we've been anticipating and talking about on May 29th. We had 13 officers in attendance, and we're getting great feedback from the officers that were there. The class itself consisted of mental, emotional, and spiritual wellness, psychological wellness, financial wellness, and physical wellness. Like I said, the officers that were in attendance, we kind of had a range of different ages, seniority-wise at the department. Great feedback we're getting right now. We plan on having another class to try and get more people involved within the next month. And hopefully by the end of next year is our goal to have everybody in our department having been through this wellness class. And I'm sorry it took so long.
No, you're fine. Thank you, Chief Walmsley. I do have a question. I'll go ahead. Mr. Woodard, did you have a question?
Just a comment. Outstanding.
Thank you, sir.
Assistant Chief Walmsley, I have a question as far as the hirees. To my understanding, there's a total of 7. Is that correct?
There's a total of 5 that we've hired. I have 2 laterals that are in the process. They've had conditional offers offered to them, but they have to pass the medical and the psychological before they get their quote unquote formal offer.
Okay. And if you can share out of those 7, can you break down ethnicity, gender? Is that something that you can share with us?
I'm gonna try and go from my mind here. We have a white female, we have a black female, 2 Hispanic males, a white male, another white female, and another white male. For them 7. I think hope that math adds up.
Yeah. Mr. Taylor, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just for clarification's sake, could you tell me what a lateral hire is? I'm not sure what that means.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. That is somebody who has been a police officer at a different agency for at least 3 years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Pastor Bennett, go ahead.
Yeah, 2 quick questions. I know you guys were and Chief Donald was working hard on reaching out to minorities for hiring. So between the process you guys already did and the process you are doing now for hiring, I would like to get you guys' thoughts on how you feel you're doing. Has what you guys have got so far, is that living up to your expectation as far as the amount of minority applications you're getting in, the amount of minority applications that you're being able to interview for hiring? How are you guys feeling on expectations there? And then as to the wellness program, I might have missed it, but is that an obligation for the officers, or is it open to officers who just want to participate, or does the department have it as an obligation?
Well, that is going to be a state mandate. I'll speak on the wellness portion first. That class is a state mandated class. Not so much the class that we're putting on. We're going to send our class to ILETSB, which is the training organization for the police in the state of Illinois. Once we send that, we'll get it certified. That's our goal, so that everything we're teaching will be certified by the state, because we want to keep it more in-house if we can for the wellness aspect. We're going to bring others in as present and all that, but we want to keep a lot of that kind of stuff here, because dealing with our officers, they're hopefully going to know what's wrong with somebody or see that we can act quickly instead of waiting to send them to a class. The other question you asked in regards to the applications with minorities, we're definitely doing better. I'm not going to say where we want to be. No. In this, this day and age, I mean, it's very difficult, I'll be honest, to recruit police officers, especially in this climate. I'm very concerned what our next group will look like, because a lot of the ones that we're getting ready to test now are from over the summer and before everything really started erupting. So I'll be interested to see how the next group goes, but the numbers are going up as of right now compared to what we had been getting in the past. So I thank you guys for really assisting us with that. I think by getting word of mouth out from multiple members of this committee here, we've been able to get that word out, get more people to apply. But yes, we can always do better. Absolutely.
Mr. Taylor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vasquez. Chief Wamley, I very much appreciate the report that you gave us. I think that from the report that you've given us, as we've had these discussions in the past, with reference to recruitment, with reference to minority hiring, I'm of the opinion that you guys are doing a good job of at least one, communicating your desire to diversify the Bloomington Police Department in an expeditious manner, and the desire to use community information and community recommendations and just communicate with the community what your desire is, and the transparency that you guys have done that. I think is what I appreciate the most. I realize how difficult it is to recruit in this climate. Police officers are taking a hit, and in some cases, rightfully so. But in this case, with reference to what's going on here in Bloomington, I think that you guys have done an expeditious job in at least trying to answer some concerns of the community, as we have been a forum to help articulate that concern with the increase in diversity candidates in your recruiting process. And I look forward to seeing more. So you're right, your next class it'll be interesting to see how successful you are in that, and I do want to see continued progress. But I appreciate the report that you gave us, and I'll continue to support what you guys are doing.
I appreciate it, sir. One thing I will add real fast, I forgot to mention, of this group that we're getting ready to start testing next week, our goal, and this is a kind of a far-fetched goal right this second, is I would like to get 2 more officers to the academy, which starts in the middle of September. So it's a very ambitious goal right now because of the short time period, but I'm hoping that we're able to hit that.
Thank you, Chief Walmsley. I do have one more question. You may be able to answer it, it may not. Of these that are going to, of the people that you have hired that are going to the academy or laterals, do we know of any of those to be bilingual? Know any other language?
I believe, and I'm not going to be 100%, but I think one of them does speak Spanish very well.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments regarding recruitment, hiring, wellness program, or anything else towards Chief Walmsley? Okay. Well, moving on to number 6 on the agenda, which is why we're here, is for the quarterly Q&A general discussion part of it. We as a board, I think, and I speak for everyone, believe that this is probably one of the best things for this PSCRB board. The PSCRB board is to hear what our community has to say, whether it be comments, questions. As you know, we are the bridge to bridge our community and our police department. I believe Bloomington Police Department is doing well. But then again, that's just my personal opinion. So we'd like to open this up for general discussion to anybody either here in attendance or visual Zoom.
Hi, Mr. Walmsley, I have a quick question for you. Were you able to read the article in WGLT last week from Ryan Denham about the instances of uses of force of the Bloomington Police Department? I noticed that he had said there were 128 instances of uses of force, and that of those, 52% of those were against Black people, yet Black people only make up 8% of the population. And I just have been kind of bothered that since, I think it was almost 3 or 4 years ago since that first meeting between the Black Lives Matter group and the police chief, when a lot of these issues were brought up the first time, that it doesn't seem like we have seen a lot of progress on those fronts over the past 3 or 4 years. And so I was just wondering if you could tell me what specific steps are being taken now, kind of in light of that information, to try to address some of these issues in policing.
Well, I can, whoop, am I unmuted?
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't know if I was unmuted. What I can tell you is, I don't have an answer why there is 52, I think that was a number, versus like the 41 or so use of the force, if I'm not mistaken. What I can say is all of the force that our department, our officers use is in response to what type of aggression is put towards the officers. So I have no control, nor does anybody except for the person involved, of the response of the aggression that these people put towards an officer, be any race, sex, anything like that. So I know that doesn't answer your question, but
So do you think as a department, it's time to evaluate some of the procedures? If all of these uses of force have been by the book that you all use, is it time to maybe evaluate that book and how it's used and how it's looked at?
Well, we're constantly evaluating our procedures. One thing I will mention that the 128 uses of force out there, that's in retrospect of 219,000 calls for service. So it's a very, very low percentage of when the officers ever even have to use any type of force.
Right, but I still think this is an important issue that's really important to a lot of people in this community. And I know just where I live, kind of by Clearwater Park, talking to people, that I've spoken with people who have had issues kind of with the Bloomington police in terms of stops, being asked to get out of their car when it doesn't really seem like there was a reason for having asked them to do that and conduct those searches. So my other issue is, I guess I'm kind of concerned that it seems like there's some of these issues, but do the number of complaints or the number of issues that kind of get brought before the review board, is it really bringing everything to the fore that needs to be brought to the fore in terms of some of the issues that we have with policing?
Well, what I can speak on is in regards to the complaint process. I think we're very transparent with the board as well as with the city in regards to the ease accessibility to file a complaint. If, like you were saying about the people in cars being stopped, getting out, having to get out for reasons they don't believe are sufficient, that's what we have that complaint process for. That's what it's used for. Now, if somebody doesn't agree with what our findings are, that's what we have the board for. I don't have any power over, once I send the letter out to how we have closed the complaint. If they go to the board, that's out of my control completely.
All right. My final thing I just wanted to bring up, were you able to see the video that kind of came out last week of the child that was kind of being apprehended by the Bloomington police officers? And there was some question over whether or not they were kind of being too rough with him. And I guess my question with that would be, to what extent are you all right now utilizing some of the organizations and connections you have in the community? From what I understand, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I thought y'all have like a pretty good relationship with Project Oz in using them in some of those situations. And just in watching the video, and I realize I don't have the full context, I didn't see what happened before the video, and I get that. But I guess as an outsider looking into this, I wonder if that situation, and I really feel like it would have been better handled if we had had a social worker or a Project Oz employee who that could better relate to that child and kind of calm that child down instead of kind of induce that panic, which it seemed like those officers were doing.
Okay, and I'm not going to disagree with you one bit that yes, there are probably some social service agencies out there that definitely probably could help. The one thing that a lot of people forget is to get a social service worker out there, say Project Oz, depending on the time of day, that doesn't happen instantaneously. If our officers encounter somebody that is a runaway, sometimes they have to deal with it at that point. They don't have time to sit there and wait half hour, 40 minutes, an hour, whatever, for somebody to get there, because then that kid could be gone. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So then I guess the final thing I just kind of want to say is I feel like as a community, we need to be evaluating these things to find out how to better enable some of those social service providers to be in a position to address some of those things. And I feel like that's really important to a lot of the people in this community, because I feel like our social service workers are the people that are best able to kind of get through to some of the people in the community and calm people down and de-escalate situations. And I know as an individual, it makes me feel much more comfortable. And so I would really hope we are moving in that direction as a community. And I really appreciate, I know I'm kind of coming at you with some like serious issues and some serious questions. I appreciate you talking about them, but I really feel like as a community, we are really ready to start seeing action on some of these issues, and that we can't really wait any longer to start building up those relationships, like I said, kind of reallocating some of our resources to some of those community partners. So thank you.
Sir, before you leave, can we get your name if possible?
Hi. Yeah, I'm Patrick Lawler. I live at 1314 Eastport Drive, kind of right by Clearwater Park.
Thank you, Mr. Lawler. Thank you for your question. And this is the reason we have these quarterly meetings. We have these questions posed to Bloomington Police Department, to the PSCRB board. We're the bridge, and these uncomfortable conversations have to happen, and we want them to happen in order for us to come together as a whole. So thank you for your question.
And thank you for getting this together and allowing this forum.
Pastor Bennett.
Yeah, I would just like to say to him again, as you said, Chairman, thank you for answering the question. This is what the quarterly meeting is about. It's good as a board to be able to hear from you, to hear your questions, and you don't have to be apologetic about it, because that's kind of what we want to hear. Two things I would say is, one of the things that you brought up concerning the excessive force and how those things are being dealt with as a board. We are concerned with things like that. And as Chairman said a little bit earlier, one of the main reasons the board was put in its place is to be a check and balance type of a board. And so what we really need to do is for our community, when they feel they have been wrong, we really need them to fill out the application with not the application, but complaint with the Bloomington Police Department if they have a complaint. And then if not satisfied with that, we need them to take the step to fill it out for the board so that the board can review it. And now, as you speak, when we have things like this being said in our community that you might hear, or numbers being reported, but then we don't have the complaints matching it, we really want to get to that point where our community understands we are here, right? We are here for that. And so maybe the board, I know we did this a little while ago when we were first being established, but maybe the board needs to, Chairman, once again, have a conversation about how we can get more word out to our community that we're here. And if there is a complaint that you fill out and it is not to your satisfactory, or you still think you've been wrong and it needs to be reviewed again, to go out to our board, maybe we can begin to think of more ways to that. I would also lastly, in the question of, excessive force, I wouldn't want it always assumed that if excessive force has had to been used, that it is because that force was needed for that situation. I don't think it's fair to always assume that unless it's been investigated and that's been shown and proven that the force that was used is what was actually needed to happen based on whatever else was going on. I think we would also need to hear on what are the de-escalation training and practices that need to go into a situation where even if there is someone that maybe was an aggressive towards an officer or whatever, what are our officers training in the community to deal with that type of thing so that excessive force won't have to happen. So I think I would just want to hear that when kind of being answered on excessive force, that our officers are trained in that situation to not have to have excessive force, even if there is a situation, that the first priority should be to de-escalate if at all possible without having to use force. I just think I kind of, in my mind, what I said, I just didn't want to feel like if there's a situation going on, force has to be the first priority as opposed to excessive force in as far as de-escalation is concerned. But again, thank you for your comments, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
Can I speak, Reverend Bennett, just real quick? It's just quickly. Our officers are trained in de-escalation. We do that quite often, and that's for every officer that goes through de-escalation training. That's an ongoing thing. That's not a one-time and we're done type deal. And our officers, as well as what we promote to them, they don't want to use force. We don't want them to use force. Sometimes the hand that's dealt to us, we don't have no control over that. So using force, I mean, it never looks good. It's never pretty. I don't care if it's done textbook. Use of force is never pretty. So there's a chance that the subject could get hurt. There's a chance the officer can get hurt. So if we can avoid it, that's not something that we want to go out and do. So any de-escalation stuff that we can do, we definitely try and do. I'm not going to say that force doesn't happen, because we all know it does. And it's like I said, it's out of our control on a lot of them issues.
Mr. Taylor, go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank you, Patrick, for coming to the board with your questions. I'm not going to reiterate some of the comments of Pastor Bennett and Mr. Vasquez about the board and what we do, and because I think you've heard that. What I'm interested in is because we are here to listen, and we are here to be that bridge, as Chairman Vasquez so eloquently talked about. I'm interested in further communication and further understanding of some of the social agencies that are and could be available to assist the police in helping to reduce the use of force, or to help the Bloomington police in calming a situation down. And perhaps at a future quarterly meeting, maybe you or someone you mentioned Project Oz, but I'm sure that there are other agencies that could offer services to the police that could assist them into helping to reduce the need for excessive force, and to helping to use some of those social agencies in some of what is commonly known as restructuring the funding for police to assist them in some of their duties, so that the police don't have to respond to some of those things. We've not really tackled any of those types of issues as a board in the past. They've not really come up. I think that part of it is the climate that we're in, that the consciousness and the conscious level of not only us as a board, community as a whole, and citizens such as yourself, that it's important that we hear from members of the community with reference to ways that we can help reduce some of those instances of excessive force. Because we as a board, we're here to at the back end of it, so to speak, when there's been a complaint and it's been reported to the police, and then that individual is dissatisfied and it comes to us as a board, I'm still interested as a citizen to want to assist in helping to prevent a complaint being filed in the beginning. So if that's something that you would be willing to do, we'd be happy to talk more about that. How we as a board can assist with that conversation. It's not a whole lot we as a board can help do to make that happen. But if there's more dialogue that can be had, we're the body that can help facilitate that, and we'd be more than happy to help to help do that. So thank you for your question.
Thanks for that input too. I'd be happy to help in any way I can with stuff. And I do agree, like you said, getting the word out more about what y'all do and that you're there. I still don't think most people are aware of that. And I do think there's a lot of people that are hesitant to report the issues that they have with the Bloomington Police Department. The one instance I'm thinking of in my neighborhood from just a day ago, there was someone who had an interaction and they were actually in a job interview with someone. And it was one of the things they were worried about that would come up in the job interview. And they were like, hey, I'm worried this is going to come up. I got pulled over by the Bloomington Police Department because they said they couldn't see the back of my license plate, and then asked if I was involved in some things and took me out and searched my car. They were still scared and frightened about that event that had happened to them. And so I think for many people, submitting those complaints to get it started in the first place is hard to do. And because of that, oftentimes things might look better than they actually are. And I really appreciate that y'all are willing to try to kind of at least start that conversation, because I feel like we're ready now as a community to start reallocating some of those resources to community partners to try to figure out how we can make that work. So thank you for all the work you all do.
And just in response to what you were just talking about there, one thing I think is also lacking is some of the education with the public on what police can and can't do and all that. So, and I would really encourage people like that you're speaking about that had the interaction. If they have questions, please have them call down, at least talk to one of the supervisors down there. They don't have to file a complaint if they don't want, but maybe the supervisor can explain, okay, this is why they did this. This is why they can do this. A lot of times, even when we get complaints, people just don't understand the law. And as Chief Donath will say over and over, we didn't create these laws. We're out here just to enforce them. These are legislators that make all these laws that we have to enforce. So we might not agree with a lot of them ourselves, but we've taken this oath that we have to protect and serve, and this is some of the laws that we have to do. So by all means, if they have questions, concerns about it, please have them reach out, because we don't know what we don't know. If nobody says anything to us, there's nothing that we know that maybe we need to get education out. Our PIO, John Furman, does a great job with our Facebook page getting a lot of this information out. So if we get information like that, hey, somebody doesn't understand this, we can pump information out that way.
Right. And I think a big part of it is trust. And I feel like that trust is lacking, which also can kind of prevent people from coming forward. Because I know, like I said, that video of the young man that was kind of being dragged, like I know there were a lot of people that were really bothered, me included, with kind of the amount of force that was used in that situation. And once again, don't know the whole story, don't know the background to everything, but it just seemed like as a teacher, if I see a child that is kind of upset like that, my first reaction is going to be like, hey, sit down, let's talk about things, like it's going to be okay, trying to calm that child down. And like I said, I didn't see what happened before. And so, it would be, I realize that I don't have the full context, but it was just as a teacher, and as a parent, upsetting to see. And I think it's events like those that kind of can erode that trust. And I guess the final thing is to see some of you all comfortable and encouraging of the citizens who do videotape the police in various situations like that. I know at times it can be easy to say, oh, it's not the full context, you don't have this. But for us in the community, it's something. It's more than we had to be able to see in some of these interactions. And I think it's valuable to try to encourage that, or to not discourage people from doing that when some of those things happen.
Yes, and I'll agree with you. The videotaping, all of our guys are videotaping, guys and gals. Everybody has a body camera that's out there. So videotaping is really not an issue anymore. The biggest thing, and I think you kind of hit it when you were talking about, is the full context. Sometimes somebody will videotape something, they get a little snippet and they put that snippet out. Well, then everybody gets amped up about that snippet. They don't know the whole story. Instead of contacting us or somebody to let us, hey, what really happened here? Can we get the whole event? We've got this little snippet going out there and everybody's amped up and going crazy over it. When if you look at the full context, maybe it isn't that bad. So I do agree with you. The full context really needs to be out there. And I think that's the education of police as well as public.
I get what you're saying on that, but I still think there's value even in the snippets, because I think when we see something that we know is wrong, there's some things that you know are wrong, even without necessarily having the entire context. And so, like I said, it's one of those things that really bothered me when I saw that video of the young man kind of being kind of dragged into that car. Even without the full context, there's still enough there, I feel like, to be kind of upset and to start wondering, how can we change things kind of now in this community? But I appreciate you taking the time to kind of address some of those issues and talk to me.
Thank you again, Mr. Lawler and Chief Walmsley. If I may, Mr. Lawler and Chief Walmsley, would you guys be interested to have some kind of, and not you yourself, but just anybody in general, a roundtable, say you may, where we have 5 or 6 citizens say that they have a concern. Would the police department be open to sit down and discuss, just in a general discussion, just of their concerns? Is that something that the Bloomington Police Department would be interested in doing?
Absolutely. And I know Chief Donath has reached out to many different stakeholders within this group, put that offer out there. We've had very few that have been receptive to it yet, but that offer has been out there for sure. He is definitely willing. I'm willing, whatever we can get this conversation going. I mean, the conversation needs to be had, don't get me wrong. But it needs to be a two-sided conversation, not a one-sided conversation.
Mr. Woodard?
Yes. Are we still having the police monthly community forum at the City Hall, or those meetings that they used to have? I'm kind of out of the loop on that.
He means the open houses that used to take place every other month, Hefner's open houses.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we haven't been able to gather.
Okay. That's understandable. I just didn't even know if they even existed anymore.
Ms. Fish, I believe you had something.
Helpful.
Yeah, on going on the same line as the open house, the whatever police chief was in office at that time, those meetings, besides anything they wanted to talk to us about, the presentation of the cameras, but also we as the public in that meeting were able to address what was most on our minds that month or those 2 months. And it was a very, very informative question and answer period. So I would suggest when we can meet again, that those were very informative and address some things that in the public were like there right now. I remember one of them had to do with a murder. One of them had to do with an accident. But they were extremely informative. And I, as a citizen, when I left the room after that meeting, knew the before, the middle, and the after, and then was more comfortable with what had happened and what had taken place. So I would definitely like to see those start up again, whether it's the police chief or one of his assistant chiefs. I found those meetings very informative and less intimidating to certain members of the community.
One thing I'll add just real fast to kind of tack on, I think was where you were going with Serena. When we're able to kind of get back to a little bit of normal, the Bloomington 101 that is put on through the city is a great program to get through, especially as a community member, because one of the things that we do is we have a training simulator that's really for use of force, different scenarios. So you can see in real life just to see how you would react to certain situations. So once we're able to get that back and open, I don't know when that'll be, nor might be able to answer that better, but that would be something great to put out to the community.
I was going to go sit back down a sec. I just want to say thanks for the idea of kind of reaching out. I actually did send an email to Chief Donath after I saw the video, and he was really nice. And we've set up a meeting. We're going to meet at Clearwater Park, I think next week, to kind of talk about some of these issues. And I really appreciate your willingness, Mr. Walmsley and Chief Donath, to kind of sit down and talk about some of the stuff. It means a lot. I think it's a better approach than we've had in the past from the Bloomington Police Department with previous chiefs, and it's very much appreciated. I just really hope now that we can start taking some action on some of these issues that have been around, we've been aware of for 4 years, but like kind of came out in the WGLT article. It doesn't seem like we've made the progress that we kind of need to be making on those. But thanks for taking the time to talk and kind of answer some of my questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Aller. Yes, Ms. Fish, go ahead.
I'm glad the gentleman is getting to have a meeting, but I would say that I think Bloomington has had a lot of progress. We have not had, and some of these things I think, again, the public just doesn't know. We have had no chokehold policy in Bloomington for quite a while. We've had this board now way ahead of everybody else in other communities for almost 2 years. All of our officers have now cameras. And we've done the police have done different demonstrations at some of the quarterly meetings on how the cameras work. Along with just not the person that's originally walks up into a situation, but the other officers that come in from other directions, that the cameras start going automatically when they get within a certain range. So Bloomington Police Department is, in my opinion, way ahead of the curve, and they're also way ahead, and they're more than happy, i.e. they're going to have a meeting with this gentleman to listen. And any meeting that we've had, including the boarding meetings, there have been things that have come out of those meetings that they have changed. An example is the brochure on filing a complaint. Someone, and yourself included, suggested doing the brochure in English and Spanish. They did it. So there's different things that they've come up with that stakeholders or people from this board have brought up, and they've worked into the policing of Bloomington Normal. So I think we are ahead of the curve. Are we perfect? No. But we have ways and groups and boards to help us along the way. So I'm just putting that in, that at this point we are ahead of the curve for what we have in place in Bloomington as far as policing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fish. I will add that I remember Chief Walmsley mentioned Bloomington 101. I myself and my wife had actually applied for that in the spring. However, I believe there wasn't enough interest. So we were going to move it to the fall, but now with COVID, who knows when that will happen. I had heard a lot of good things about it. So that's why and one of our aldermen had encouraged me to take the class, and I was looking forward to it, like I said, but who knows looking forward. Yes, no, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to add in there, every single session of Bloomington 101 has been full, including the one, I think you got into the fall or spring, whichever one, but that one was canceled because of COVID.
Yeah, but I do you know if, of course, I think everything's up in the air, but let's look forward to next year. Is that something that a program that Bloomington will still have and continue having?
Yes, I think we'll continue to have it into the foreseeable future. One, because it has been so popular, and two, thanks to the support of our council and our administration and all of our departments that participate in it. It really has been a great program. I wish that we could accommodate more people because it is so popular. And I look forward to, when we do hear about, new guidelines that will allow us to do that program. So, yes.
Nora, is there any comments on Zoom? Any questions posed, or is there anybody else that from the public on here currently that has a question or comment?
We have no open questions.
Ms. Fish?
Along with your recommendation and Nora's, I am a graduate of Bloomington 101. I cannot tell you how interesting it is, how much I learned about all different segments of the city, including the police department. I really was bad because I don't own a gun and I've never owned a gun and I don't want to own a gun. And so when I did the simulation of somebody coming up with me and surprising me in some of the police training, I flunked. But it's a great thing to go through because you just don't know how are you going to react when you are put in a position and you've had no training or all the different things that police go through, but you as a citizen. But anyone that can or wants, Bloomington 101 is an excellent program. All segments of it, not just the police part. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fish. Is anybody hearing that there is no other comments or from the public out there or questions? Does anybody have any other questions, comments of Mr. Lawler's comments toward the police department or in general? Okay. I know during this time, it's a difficult, the attendance wasn't there, what we were looking for. I'm sure there's various issues of, why there's not people attending. Maybe they don't have the capability to attend online. So moving on to number 7, as far as discussion of future meetings and dates and times, do we want to just maybe put that on hold and see what discussed in the next quarterly meeting at our next board meeting to see a date and a time? Because I don't want to set nothing now, and then, who knows if something happens down the road or somebody has a better idea. Maybe just keep it open to the next board meeting. Can we do that, Nora? Or do we have to set a date?
No, you don't. You can, whatever you want to do.
What's the board's feedback on that? Mr. Taylor, go ahead.
I think that our next quarterly meeting should be as scheduled, unless we see that due to circumstances that we need to cancel it. So I think right now it's on the calendar for September. I think we need to leave it there in consideration of maybe some things opening up and having the opportunity to meet more in public, if that's possible in September. So I think we should just pin it and determine topics of discussion at our next August and perhaps September meeting if we have one.
Yeah, Ms. Fish, go ahead.
I agree with Mr. Taylor, and I know that at our regular meeting, we discussed waiting to see when we can get together for our next regular meeting. But yeah, I'd like to leave the quarterly meeting on the agenda and encourage all stakeholders, including the gentleman, Mr. Waller, that spoke, to be aware of it. And we're here and we do want to hear from him and any other stakeholders. And I personally would like to hear how the meeting goes with him and the police chief. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor, let's give Mr. Woodard a chance, then we'll come back.
I'm
to
sorry,
you.
go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Yeah, this is all very new to all of us. And one of the reasons why we may not have as many people tonight is that there was a little bit of some mental gymnastics that had to take place to even get to the link to get to the meeting tonight, as in terms of going to the city site and going to the page and under meetings and clicking on the links. And yeah, that's something that maybe we need to look at. That's all.
Mr. Taylor, go ahead.
And I'll just mention, as we mentioned in our previous meeting, that there is an opening on the board for those who may be watching later as part of the recording of the meeting that we're having right now. There is an opening on the board that our citizens can apply to be considered by the mayor and the city council for appointment to the board. And if that there are people who may be interested in joining the PSCRB, that they have the opportunity to apply and go onto the city website and apply accordingly. If that's correct, Nora, that they can go on the city website and apply to be a member of the for the opening that's currently on the PSCRB.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think this would be it's going to be a popular, if I can use that word, interest as far as someone filling that vacancy. Again, it's ultimately the council and the mayor's decision. However, I would encourage you, anybody listening or the board to share that with friends, family, or any social media outlets that you have, and stress that we are looking for somebody to serve on the PSCRB board. So it looks like our next September 9th is our quarterly meeting. And we'll go ahead and pencil that in. Again, we'll do virtual, and now we'll have to apologize as well. This is all new to us. I agree with Mr. Woodard. It's mental Olympics. It's a little difficult, but I will work with Nora closely and make sure all links and information is shared ahead of time with the board and with the public. Nora, do you see any other meetings happening September 9th that will conflict with our meeting currently?
Not at this time. And I also, if I could, would like to add, even though we don't have any open questions and answers, we only have a couple attendees, that does not necessarily reflect the number of people that are watching us on YouTube right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other, so we'll go ahead and set September 9th, our next quarterly meeting at 6 o'clock. And we will, in our next August board meeting, come up with an agenda and reflect on our quarterly meetings and some of the comments that were posed, and come up with the agenda for the next quarterly meeting, if that's okay with everybody. Ms. Fish, go ahead.
Yes, so I move that we approve that. Do we need to vote?
No, I don't believe we need, since it's just general discussion. Is that correct, Mr. Boyle?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments on the dates and times of our next quarterly meeting?
No.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for everybody, at least these guys behind the scene here at the City Hall with helping us put this meeting together. We greatly appreciate it. And for everybody attending today. Yeah, yes, Mr. Taylor.
One comment that I'd like to express my appreciation to Chairman Vasquez. This was his first meeting. He had a double meeting, and he did a great job. We look forward to you chairing many more meetings for the PSCRB. You did a great job.
Thank you for the kind words, Mr. Taylor. But if you could see, I'm a nervous wreck. Mr. Woodard.
Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't bring this back up. Before we close, we did have some public comment that I think we need to really consider addressing with that request for a youth be added to the board. I think that's a discussion worthwhile having in the future.
Yeah, I suggest that we have that as an agenda item for our next meeting in August.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I will take note of that and make sure that's on the agenda. Yes, Ms. Fish.
I agree to that, but is that our decision or is it city council and mayor decision?
Well, I think,
remember.
I believe the board just wants to discuss that. I don't think that's something that we can do, appoint or even add any positions. I think it's just a general discussion. Am I correct?
I think you're right, Chairman Vasquez. It isn't something that you guys can do, but it is something you could advise on and discuss.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Ms. Fish?
Yes, but also, I know at some point there was another thing that came up, whether we add one more board member. If they're not a voting member, it's okay. But if they're a voting, then we would have to add 2 members to keep it at an uneven number.
And I can make that an agenda item and we can discuss that at our next board meeting. But yeah, that would give us some time to reflect of what we heard. And we can always go back and watch it on YouTube and make sure we take note of that, or I take note of that and bring it up at the next board meeting. Anything else? Okay, well, may I have a motion to adjourn our meeting, quarterly meeting?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and have a good evening. Stay cool.
Thank you.
Well, you still have to take a roll vote to actually adjourn.
You see, you guys gave me too much credit at the beginning there, and here I'm walking away with it.
Did good.
Everybody, so we can't get a vote for adjourn. Everybody say aye.
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 Those that oppose? All right, everybody
Aye.
agrees.
Aye.
We'll see you. Thanks.
Have a good day.
See you later.
Good night.